It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of January 17th, 1997. We only got 3 movies to look at today, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, Chris Farley as the Beverly Hills Ninja.
In the secret clan of the Ninja, there is a legend that foretells a foreign child will come among them and become a ninja master unlike the world has ever seen. They believe this was the child. They were wrong. Now,
hello?
a mysterious stranger needs his help.
I must go to the hills of Beverly, find Sally Jones and save her.
Hi, everyone!
You're going with him. No, please. Anything but that.
He must return to the land of his birth.
What are you doing here? I have come many miles and now travel disguised as a pimp to help you.
And use the ancient teachings of the ninja.
You're a ninja? You know, I took a few karate lessons myself. I mean, I'm not as advanced as you. I'm what you might call a tangerine belt.
To seek out the truth.
I am preparing one of our greatest ninja tools, the laughing mushroom. Family is the killer. He killed her sister.
And prove to the world.
I am one with the universe. I am one with the universe.
No, I am not! That he is the great white ninja.
My identity must remain secret. I cannot reveal it to you. Why not? Because I would then have to kill you.
TriStar Pictures presents a film that puts the mortal back in combat. Chris Farley.
I am a trained master in each of the weapons of battle. Man, that was so...
Beverly Hills Ninja.
What a fool I was.
So this is a follow-up for both Dennis Dugan, who had just come off of Happy Gilmore the year before, and Chris Farley, who had just come off of both Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. And, needless to say, this is essentially a one-joke premise, really. I mean, it's Chris Farley as a ninja, and he's clumsy, and he's all over the place, but you know what? That's kind of the charm of these Chris Farley movies. I mean, these are all that we have left of him, because this is the last film that he starred in before his eventual death. Even though he made a couple of other movies before then, and he was going to be in Shrek too, but this is the last film that he starred in before he died later on that year. And I don't think I mentioned this before when I talked about Tommy Boy and Black Sheep, but when Chris Farley died, that was the first real death in my life that really affected me, because I loved watching Chris Farley. I loved watching what he did. I mean, Tommy Boy and Black Sheep are classic films. I loved watching his time on Saturday Night Live. So when he died later in '97, I mean, that was the first real glimpse of death that I ever had as a kid. Like, I saw somebody that I really like leave and he's never coming back. And yeah, that was something that really got to me. But this was, like I said, this was the last movie he made before he died in December of this year. And like I said, it's not a great movie. It is essentially a one-joke premise, but it still has a lot of really funny moments in there. And I think because this is the last movie that Farley did in his life, I think it actually works a lot better than I think most people would give it credit for. You're watching this mostly to see Chris Farley do what Chris Farley did so greatly in his time here on Earth, and it's really funny to watch him in this movie. Like I said, it's a very formulaic story. There's nothing really that intriguing or that interesting here. You can make kind of an argument that this was kind of like a live-action equivalent to something like Kung Fu Panda. But, of course, Kung Fu Panda did that story much better. But, like I said, this is not a bad movie, per se, even though it did get panned at the time of its release. But over time, it's become more of one of those funny movies that's not one of those movies that... It's not an incredible classic film, like one we're going to put up with some of the greatest underrated comedies of all time, but it's still a very funny movie and one of the last real glimpses of Farley's comedic talents. And like I said before, it would have been amazing to see what Farley would have done afterwards. Like, it would have been interesting to see what his Shrek would have been like. if he'd been alive to do that. We've already seen a little bit of it because they put some footage out there a long time ago, which actually showed him with Eddie Murphy, and that's all we have for it. But yeah, but like I said, this movie overall is a fun movie. It's an enjoyable film. It's got a really good cast to it. It's got some nice visuals to it, and some good comedy too. Like I said, it's Chris Farley doing what Chris Farley does best, and I think even though this doesn't have the same caliber as something like a Tommy Boy or a Black Sheep, this one is still very funny. I'd still watch this any day of the week. It's still a very funny movie. I go back to it every once in a while. Not a classic by any means, but it's one I watch all the time. It's a film that you kind of are obligated to if you've ever been a fan of Chris Farley's work. It's kind of a must to watch this movie along with the other movies that he starred in. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I got to say about this one. This is a fun movie. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the next movie. And speaking of Eddie Murphy, as I brought him up, he has a movie out this weekend, and that movie is Metro.
In the city of San Francisco, when hostages are taken,
The suspect is wearing a black vest and t-shirt. Let's go!
you can do it the easy way,
Slot wants to go in.
or you can do it his way.
Can I have a dozen donuts, please?
Suspect's name.
Earl. Okay, Earl. Hey, man, what's in the bag? These are donuts, Earl. Give me my car, man. Everybody relax. I'm gonna get your car right now. Oh, it's one other thing. What? You want a hot top or convertible?
This guy's good. For Scott Lorber, life is just one negotiation after another.
I'm going to score. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
His new partner
I'm the teacher, right?
Yes, sir.
You're the student.
Yes, sir.
needs his experience.
Okay, stop right there. Close your eyes. Okay? Now tell me what you see. I see a scumbag behind the counter with a sword off. There's a female hostage down in front of the cereal rack. And there's a special on toilet paper 4 for $1.29.
And his latest case
I'm not armed, okay?
All right, Roper, you want to come? Just might leave him speechless. On January 17th.
You have to take this guy out. He's got a real calm and creepy demeanor. The guy's wacko.
A city's only hope is a man armed only with his intelligence
I got 2 words for you. Seek help.
and his mouth.
Hey, that's my car!
Touchstone Pictures presents
I don't have a car. What the hell happened to your transaction?
Eddie Murphy.
This is it. This is your ride. What? This is my ride over here. This black car is my ride. This is your ride. Oh, come on now. What am I, Red Fox?
Metro.
Man, where's your stereo? Never mind the stereo. What's that smell?
So kind of going back to what we had with Beverly Hills Ninja being a follow-up to several different things, this was Eddie Murphy's follow-up to The Nutty Professor, which was the film that helped jumpstart his career again. Unfortunately, this movie did not do well financially. It was a $55 million budgeted film. It only brought back $32 million. It didn't even do well with critics, honestly. But honestly, when I look back on it, I gotta say, this is probably one of Eddie Murphy's most underrated movies. Now, from the first glance of it, I know you can kind of get a feeling that this is kind of a wannabe Beverly Hills Cop movie. I mean, it's pretty much Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley. Instead of him being in Detroit, he's already in California, but in San Francisco. But first off, this is already a better movie than Beverly Hills Cop 3 was. But this movie does work. I mean, Eddie Murphy is back to being very funny. He has a lot of good charisma to him, a lot of very funny a lot of funny material in here to give him. He's very good in this. The dialogue is very solid. The action sequences overall are a ton of fun. It has a really good cast for Murphy to work off. I mean, Michael Rappaport is very good in here. You got Carmen Ejogo in one of her early film roles. You see Art Evans, who was also in Die Hard 2. You see Donald Logan there. There are some really good people in here, and there is a lot of good material here to work with. And it's directed by Thomas Carter, and Thomas Carter has made some pretty good movies. Save the Last Dance, Coach Carter, a couple of really good movies from this guy. He did say that one of the biggest mistakes he made in his career was to make this an R-rated movie, because he also thought that was that was part of the lukewarm reception the film got, which, I don't know. I don't think you could do this with a PG-13 rating, honestly. I think you had to make it R. And yeah, I think it works better because it has the R rating to it. Certainly not one of Eddie Murphy's better movies, but at the same time, it's certainly a lot better than something like Beverly Hills Cop 3. It definitely has a lot of the stuff that makes Eddie Murphy movies funny. I think he's very good in here. He's got a good supporting cast to work around. It's a very good movie, a very underrated Eddie Murphy film. If you have not seen this movie and you want to see some of the best underrated stuff that Murphy has ever done, I'd highly say check this one out. It's definitely worth your time if you're looking for some really good entertainment. It's got some good action, some good comedy. It's very solid all around. It's an enjoyable film. I highly recommend it. So that is Metro. So let's go ahead and take a look at our last movie here, and that is Albino Alligator with Matt Damon.
Chance. Kids. Good job. Just relax. Drink your beer. Drink it. Enjoy your evening. Here you can.
Where's the report on this man?
And a thought in action.
Sharpshooters on the buildings west and south.
Now you're gonna rob me? The day just keeps getting sweeter.
Blueprints for all the buildings in the area.
Kind of.
So I stopped that trailer just before it got to the big twist that takes place in there to make you think that it's not what you think it is. But this is Albino Alligator. This is a film that stars Matt Damon, Faye Dunaway, Gary Sinise. You also see William Fichtner in there, Viggo Mortensen, M. Emmett Walsh, Skeeter Ulrich, Joe Mantegna you see in there, as well as John Spencer. But the thing you don't see is who directed this movie, and this is actually kind of a surprise when I looked this up here. Kevin Spacey directed this movie. I mean, Kevin Spacey, of course, he's best known for his work with The Usual Suspects in Seven and American Beauty, but he also works in Broadway theater. He has directed several things on Broadway, as I recall, and say what you will about him now, but don't forget, this guy can be a really damn good actor when he needs to be. And this kind of makes me curious to see this film. I've never seen this movie before, but the fact that Kevin Spacey directed this movie, it kind of has my interest to see if it's good or not. It looks like it has a very unique twist on a story that could be very interesting, but it could actually be something pretty interesting. But I see here that it's got a very mixed reception. It's 50%. It's literally 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it definitely can go either way. It could be an ambitious project that falls flat, or maybe it is an underrated gem that nobody really ever talks about. But I've never seen this movie, so I can't really say if it's any good or not. But I kind of want to see it just on the fact that Kevin Spacey directed this movie. I kind of want to see what he'd do as a director, and hopefully I can find this somewhere out there. But it's definitely got my curiosity, though. With that said, that's Albino Alligator. So on that note, that leaves another edition of Time About the Movies in the books. Next time we meet, we'll take a look at 5 more movies, including the follow-up to A Fish Called Wanda, featuring a lot of the people from A Fish Called Wanda, Fierce Creatures. We have Steve Guttenberg in Zeus and Roxanne. We have Prefontaine. We also have Koila, and also Reggie's Prayer. So 5 movies to look at next time around. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.